it isn't just the two of you. Your kids are involved in this as well, right? And again, I appreciate as much as you're willing to discuss, because I know it's probably still hard to this day to think about, but what was OCD doing, or how was it interfering in your ability to parent your children?
I would say I was able to shield them pretty well and
Okay.
manage it because I started to get the gist of what was going on and like when it was going to happen and what would cause an issue. So I was able to shield most of it. But whenever, I mean, it didn't really directly affect them, and they were so young, so it really they probably wouldn't remember any of it, to be honest with you. But it could have been bad for sure. It definitely, there were certain things that would affected them, but we were able to kind of course correct it, you know.
Okay.
I think you're also trying to be nice.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not justifying it.
they were young enough to not know. Yes, that is true. But I remember vividly him, because I've told you this before, Dr. McGrath, he's obnoxiously upbeat, always in a good mood. And just, I watched him crumble. And he was like, and we had to learn to separate the OCD from me. But like, you know, at the time it was, you're not letting me be a parent. You're not letting me, you know, Ellie would want to go play in the dirt. And I was like, no, we can't do that. Or, you know, I'm constantly just this shadow, this cloud over my OCD was, right, all over the situation. And he could not.
That was South Carolina. That was before I knew it was like that was before the big bang, so to speak. So I remember that conversation though. I remember being frustrated because I wanted her to put mulch down with me, and you wouldn't let her, and I didn't understand that at the time. But it didn't necessarily affect her though. She was upset because you made her go inside, but she didn't know any difference of putting it down or not. It wasn't detrimental to her, but those types of things did get in the way, and they could have definitely been detrimental.
What was the Big Bang? That I like that phrase. What
The
was
Big Bang, I would say to me, was when we left Paris Island and we're on the way there. And I enjoy like moving and starting like when we go to new bases and things, like I enjoy that process. One, because I finally have time with my family for an extended period. So I tend to enjoy those times. But I remember her reading that lease and calling me. I was in the U-Haul in front of her. And I just knew, like, it just hit. And I was like frustrated because when we move in, I want to get it set up. I want to hang stuff on the wall. I want to make it a home as fast as possible. And every avenue I turned to, that was not happening. I mean, for almost a month, everything stayed in the box, you know. So the Big Bang was reading that lease, I would say. That's when it really, like, I knew it was coming. And then once we got there, it happened.
I'm shocked because people with OCD don't read into anything, Mackenzie. So I don't know how you would have done it.
I've never showed you my resume, but I'm an expert pest control. I'm expert in
are you? Okay.
Yeah, infectious disease, mold,
mouse poop, hantavirus, all of it. Yeah, you have an honorary degree in all of these areas.
Yeah, you have great attention to detail.
Just what you want, right? All right. So then therapy comes into play, right? And you two kind of realize that this is beyond us, and that's got to be difficult, right? I mean, everybody wants to try to figure everything out together, but how do you decide that nope, we need some extra intervention going on here, that we're not handling this well?
You want me to you want me to say it?
What?
I can tell you from what happened for me. I actually called her parents.
Okay.
And I let them know, like, hey, this is what?
I'm teasing. just.
I called her parents and I was like, this is starting to affect, the way I'm operating with the children. And that was kind of the Kenzie and I had like a thing, whatever we have on our lives, we just don't want it to affect the family. So
Sure.
I called her parents and they intervened. And they kind of told her like, hey, you need to do therapy. And then she got mad about that, which I understand during that time. But she eventually, it stuck. We had that conversation and she went for
it. Everything imploded. Like, so finances, we've moved into this house out in town in California, and the gas.
It's very cheap in California, by the way.
Gosh.
So yeah.
Pennies. Yeah.
I don't know what you're complaining about. It's
And gas, because I wasn't driving.
Sure.
And so I had started therapy and we were talking and we just had nothing left financially. I mean, because and the bills, the utility bills in California, so electricity, gas, everything was so expensive. And we talked to my therapist and a house had opened on base again. And I was, I think it's this crappy feeling of where, you don't want to put yourself in a box, but I felt like I had to say, this isn't my OCD, this is like, we have to do this. We have to move because we cannot financially sustain what is going on here. Now, was my OCD not liking that house we were in? Yes, but we were drowning. So we ended up, moving again, which it's so embarrassing to say out loud, but we ended up moving again and we sat down and I remember this, I don't know if you do, but my therapist was like, okay, we are not moving. I don't care what the hell happens. Yeah. Mackenzie, do you get it? Montana, do you get it? This is it. This is it. And we worked on, not, checking everything as soon as we walk into the house. And, I think for me it was scary because the poor human had done this now 3 times. And it was like, okay, is this going to stick? Is this, is this going to be okay? And he always said divorce isn't an option, but I swear to God, our marriage was hanging on by a thread. And you don't even go into, I don't know if this is TMI, but OCD affects everything. Sex life, finances,
of course.
Everything.
Yeah. It's hard to sometimes look at each other, I'm assuming, when you've just argued or fought about everything and then be like, oh, it's intimacy time now. No, I mean that you don't just flip a switch or something like that, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my contamination OCD with that kind of stuff too, had kind of latched on in a lot of different ways also. I think it's all encompassing. I think about all the groceries I threw away.
Yeah.
And there's more money and everything too, right?
We got rid of a car.
It was a significant amount of money. I couldn't put a number on it, but it was well over 15 grand within a 6-month period on basic living expenses. That wasn't extra. That was nothing extra. That probably doesn't even include, fuel for the cars or anything like that. That was just moving around, buying new stuff. It was quite a bit.
And at 15 grand that we did not have to do that with, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. Everyone's got 15 grand just laying around.
Yeah.
How do you come to terms in settling in? I'll get to the full coming to terms with all of this as you can look back, but how do you start going from this chaotic experience? You're starting therapy, you're listening to the therapist. Mackenzie, there's got to be a part of you that wants to fight that, right? And be, that back and forth internal. Montana, you're there to help and support. And how do you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, we can figure this out, we can make this work, we can do this, but we've got to live within these walls, right? To be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that for me, I realized that the only thing scarier than my OCD was the world I had created and that we were living in. It was very much so projecting onto our kids I mean, I went through a time where I didn't even feel like I could give them a bath because my OCD had convinced me that like I'd get water in their eyes or their mouth and they would get a brain eating amoeba. So Montana had to do it. And it was this, it makes you feel horrible as a mom. You know, I absolutely loved being a mom, but I wouldn't get out of my own way. And so I think, and then watching him just, you know, completely come undone. I mean, he looked at me one time and he was like, I am in a depression. Like that's okay. You know, and, you know, he had gained weight. He wasn't doing anything physically. Like you could just see the life draining from him. And that gutted me. And then, you know, we had like savings and had been doing so well. And to see all of that go too, it was so hard. It was so hard. And I don't think, you know, I don't know that we even fully understand how much we've lost as far as that goes, between like throwing groceries away, all the things. And I just knew that I couldn't live like that anymore. And more so than me, that my family couldn't live like that anymore. So I think one of the key parts, and I will die on that hill, is Montana coming to therapy and being that accountability partner. Like tell Dr. McGrath how excited you were to drop a toothbrush in the.
It was great.
Yeah. He had so much fun with exposure response therapy. Yeah. Like one of my first exposures.
It was payback.
Was he had to like drop something on the ground in the store and buy it anyway, and I wasn't able to know like what it was, but like I had to use everything, and he to this day I don't think has told me what it was. But then, you know, he used to get virtual high fives through therapy all the time too, because when my driving OCD was loud, you know, I was like, Montana, were you paying attention? Like, I don't know if that was a person or not. And he was like, oh no, like I wasn't. He's like, but I'm going to get in the shower when we get home. So if the cops come to the door, like tell them I said hi, like, you know, or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, it was, what do you think?
Like for me,
once we dug in,
for me, it was just gaining an understanding. That's all I lacked.
Sure. Yeah.
Cause being in the military, people have issues and things that happen, and you just kind of give them time to figure it out and help them along the way. But that wasn't working with Mackenzie. So I had gotten to a point where I didn't know what to do. So it was really nice for her therapist to kind of give me guidance, you know, and I wasn't on every call, but she had gotten to a point where she would do the session with Mackenzie, and then at the end she would make Mackenzie leave and then talk to me and ask me, you know, hey, how's she really doing? You know, did she do this and things like that, which I really appreciated because it kind of allowed me to ask questions, you know, and get other avenues that I could do. And the big one was the communication. It was the way I was addressing the OCD. So when she would do something, I'd be like, oh, here you go again. And that would anger her.
Literally
and
that.
Then we would argue. And so instead of doing that, it was this simple. Hey, is this really bothering you, or is this OCD? Do you need a minute? Just those exact words, just like that, completely changed the direction of how we handled those points of friction. So it was
amazing.
It was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she asked me if it was okay to like have that time.
Of course.
Yeah, with Montana. And
she was great.
Yeah, the communication of like, because it's valid, right? I get that feeling of like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, are you kidding me right now? And I get that. But I think Montana, like he was saying to me before we started this today, that it's important to what were you saying about like the OCD versus the person?
Oh, it's separating it. So knowing OCD versus her personality or her actions, being able to separate. Now, that's easier said than done, though. I don't want to downplay that at all, because for us specifically, for a while you were doing those things and I didn't I didn't think it was anything. You know what I mean? I thought that was kind
Yeah.
of you until it actually occurred. When it really got bad, that's when I had to learn to separate the two.
Till Mackenzie started on steroids, you're saying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My OCD was the Energizer Bunny. It just was not running out of anything.
Yeah, it was a movie.
But I
So,
go ahead, Dr. McGrath. I'm sorry.
no, please. You were going to say something.
I think him learning, educating himself on what OCD was, and I think it's the idea of like, I think I said this the other night too, but it's the idea of getting the support we need versus the support we want. And
There you go.
you know, I think also accountability, like just because I have OCD doesn't mean that I get to treat everyone like my punching bag. And that was kind of what was happening too.
Right. Yeah.
I've always said OCD does not have your best interest at heart.
No.
Right.
Or your family's best interest at heart either, right? It has its own best interest at heart, and be damned anybody who gets in the